So, what is paid, owned, and earned media? Daniel?
So essentially, it's also referred to as poem for the paid, owned, and earned media. And it's a way of categorizing together essentially our digital channels and grouping things together. And it's got some advantages and kind of disadvantages, but we can kind of go through and talk about the different areas.
So, should we start with paid media then?
Yeah, so paid's probably the most obvious. It is our paid for channels. That could be paid for advertising, but also that would include paid social media. And this is where you start to get in some discrepancies of like, well, it's social media, but it fits into paid. So yeah, we're going to say paid social media advertising goes into the paid category. And what we're looking for is normally to have a blend of these three going on at any given time. And then we decide where we're going to weight them differently as well from that point of view as well. It's one of those models that's fairly arbitrary, but we need to try and work out, where it kind of fits together.
So, what about owned media?
Right. This is where it gets interesting. So own very obviously is your websites because you own those, you've got control over them. Your emails because you own those and you've got control of that. But actually, the general argument is that your Facebook page or your LinkedIn profile, also your earned kind of media because you have control over that. Now, I would argue to some extent you don't, because at any point the social media platforms can change things. So there's kind of an argument where it says, and it doesn't matter particularly. It's just a way of kind of thinking about how your media fits together.
It's how you define owned, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
if I own something, I have complete control of it. I do not have complete control of everything that happens on LinkedIn or TikTok or any of those platforms. So it's, yeah.
And some people would even argue, well, actually, your posts on those platforms you're owned as well because you control that. Yeah, and that's my feeling as well. That it's a little bit of a risky way of thinking about it because you might lose control of it at any point.
Owned with a lowercase o.
Yeah, maybe that's it, right?
So, what about earned media?
So earned is your social media comments, your reviews, all those kind of things as well. So definitely that part of social media. You may argue that actually your social posts go into your kind of earned kind of area as well. So you can kind of categorize that way.
So, there's some overlaps then.
Yeah, with the overlap. So you could basically go through and say, actually, to some extent, your search optimization is a bit of your owned because you own your website and you're putting content on there. But it's also your earned because it's people talking about it in social media, linking through from other websites and actually engaging with that kind of content as well. As a model and as a framework, I think it's useful because you can't rely on one area. And there's a lot of strategies where people are relying on one area. It's all about paid or it's all about their search optimization. And I think it just shows you that you need a blend to have the maximum impact, but also to de-risk.
They're not all equally as powerful either. You know, if I've got earned like other people saying amazing things about my brand soars on that because they don't have a hidden agenda. But everybody knows a paid ad is,
That's right.
Harry Herbert's for people to sell stuff, right? That's what they're trying to do. And I think that's where like the earned stuff is particularly powerful because generally it comes from genuine advocates who are, fans of your brand or your service. And therefore it has a lot more cut through when people come across it.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that your owned is kind of a bit of a hygiene factor. You need to get it right. You need the best websites, the best emails, the best content. Your earned is where it's really at in terms of you can make sure that you're getting that engagement, those reviews. That's the really harder to get stuff. So that's really important. And then paid, well, if we can't really get visibility, then we're going to use that. But in an ideal world, you wouldn't do any paid at all because you wouldn't need to. So there's always going to be a blend between those different channels.
I've worked at brands that literally bootstrap themselves on word of mouth. Like the whole business was built on that. And actually they, for years, actively never did any paid advertising. All of that money that would have traditionally, this was a beauty brand, would have been traditionally been put into huge amounts of advertising, was all put into value added for the customer. And that's how they generated word of mouth. So there's ways of playing around this. This is just a model to show you what the mix is. But, you look at a business like that and they grew from nothing to 50 million turnover a year, employing 500 people in like 10 years off of the back of that. So, by tweaking the amount of, think of them as like spices, how much or which spice you're going to put into your business cake. And actually, there's different ways of spicing this, and that was definitely an alternative way that worked amazingly well.
Yeah, there's no right and wrong, but it is just a way of thinking about what's the right mix for my target audience to achieve my objectives.